Recording. Hello, hello. This is Pam. And I never do this for you guys, but I do know how. So, hi, we'll do that, and then I'll go back to the little screen where I can read all your notes. But happy summer solstice, happy eclipse, happy survival. So let's go back to, okay, we are recording, and we'll start with the chart, the solar eclipse chart for today. The solar eclipse this morning, Lord knows we've been talking about it, so I think everybody knows. It's 0 degrees Cancer, and it was at 2:41 this morning in Eastern Time, Cincinnati, Washington, D.C., Eastern Time. Now, obviously, it was last night. It was on 2020. It was on the 20th in the West Coast, so late at night, 3 hours difference. So, but no matter whether you're in California, East Coast, Washington, D.C., London, this is still the chart of the eclipse. The houses will be different. The chart will be the same. So the eclipse is 0 Cancer in 21 minutes. And the one big thing about this eclipse, of course, I'm going to come over here and I have a PowerPoint, so maybe we'll just go and explain from here. It's on the world solstice axis. What does that mean? If you've heard that phrase and you've heard that conversation, that it's on the world axis. Here's our Earth, and our Earth is actually kind of squished. It's fatter in the middle, and the poles are kind of flat. We have the celestial North Pole and the celestial South Pole. And then we have the equator, which is that green line, and the red line is what you call the ecliptic. It's the path of the sun around Earth, and that's because, I'll come back to that. It's because the Earth actually is tilted, as you know. So the polar axis, the North Pole's up here, the South Pole's down here. And there's a slight wobble in the, in the axis. So what really happens is here's Earth, and here's the pole. And so if you run a vertical line straight through, you'd have your right angle, and you'd have the equator right here. But the celestial equator is actually here. They call it the celestial equator because the equator, it runs a circle, imaginary circle around our Earth, but when you extend it out, then we have a line that will coincide with the ecliptic or the sun's path. And of course, that's what gives us 0 there. So the 4 angles, when the sun reaches the equator in the spring, that's 0 Aries. And then as the sun as we're tilted and the sun reaches its highest point in the northern hemisphere, this is actually, as you see, the Tropic of Cancer. And so today, the sun is at the Tropic of Cancer, which cracks me up because it's on all the globes, and people don't get that that's actually the point where the sun turns. It's the longest day of the year in the north and the shortest day in the southern hemisphere. So it's our summer solstice is what we call it, but it's the Tropic of Cancer. And so to have an eclipse on the day that hits is significant. Now, so here we go, and here's this Earth again with the North Pole and the South Pole, and it's on an angle. So today we had early this morning, so the sun and the moon conjuncted at 0 Cancer and made a annular total solar eclipse. And so it was seen, and I've shown you the map before, of only half the Earth. If you look at the chart of the eclipse, you'll notice that in our country, the sun and moon were below the horizon. This is the horizon of Earth. And so the sun and moon are below the horizon. Therefore, we couldn't see it. Okay? But guess who could see it? And that's the whole point. Africa, Asia is where this is eclipsed now. Remember, the eclipses from historical times, 6 months in, 6 months out, or high peak, right? So, during the solar spectacle known as an annular solar eclipse, the moon covered most but not all of the sun. This type of, it's the distance of the moon from the sun and their angle. It's an eclipse, but it's called the ring of fire. So the moon comes over the sun, but there is still a ring of fire, and that's what they mean by that. So it's around the edge of the moon. The eclipse began 11:45 Eastern Time, and went until 5:34 in the morning, meaning over that period of time, it was eclipsing all the time. So this is what an eclipse looks like. Now, everybody knows, well, most of you do anyway that have studied, we have 12 signs. We have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. And we all know that, and we all have observed that. But what they call the world axis is 0 Cancer to 0 Capricorn, because it divides this whole axis in half. And the Cancer point is literally the Tropic of Cancer when the sun's at its longest period of the day in the sky, and Capricorn when it's at the shortest period. So this Cancer Capricorn 0 degrees is called, particularly in astrology, but in other areas of the world axis. So 0 Cancer Capricorn, because of the solstice point of Cancer Capricorn, is a very critical point in our system. So to have an eclipse that's catching this, to be sitting at 0 Cancer on the summer solstice, on the world point, is a big deal. Now, I meant to get the picture of the galactic center, but I'll tell you. Where our Earth connects with our solar system, and we have a position. And so from us to go out, and where our solar system connects with our galaxy, from Earth, it goes out through 29 degrees of Sagittarius. So this eclipse is not only on our world axis of 0 Cancer, it's on what they call the galactic center, or where our solar system connects with the galaxy. So think about it spiritually as it's hitting us on Earth, full bloom. Cancer is full culmination. It's when the sun is at its brightest and longest in the sky in the northern hemisphere, so it's what you'd call full bloom. And so we're drawing the energy in at 0 Cancer and anchoring it to Earth, okay? However, then from Earth, the energy is also shooting back out through the Earth, out into the system, and straight out into the galaxy. So as you meditate, you do your prayers, and however you want to language that, make sure that you remember to draw in the universal energy and send it back out to the system, because we are active on this. And this 24-hour period is particularly strong. It's also strong emotionally because Cancer rules emotions and reactions, and so you want to check your emotions and your responses, of course. And if you're feeling really emotional, then pull off by yourself a little bit and be quiet. What I did today. So this axis is a big deal. And so I wanted to talk about how often does that occur. The winter solstice will be the next one, and we'll talk about that. The summer solstice, and then the winter solstice will be December 21st. And that's when the sun is on the Tropic of Capricorn, the shortest. For us, it is the winter solstice. It's the shortest day of the year, longest night. And we'll come to that. Oh, I know, it's in the charts. That's where it is. I started to say I was going to show it to you. So here's the eclipse of today. The only big aspect that this is making, and it's an exact aspect, is to Saturn. Saturn is discipline, control, and structure. And this particular last couple of weeks has felt very hard, and maybe calling you to discipline, calling you to make hard decisions. And I read somebody this morning that said you may, because it's in a what you call a quincunx aspect or a stressful aspect, that you may not feel like doing the Saturn discipline things. And so, quite frankly, if you're feeling like backing out, backing down, and having a day, take it. Honor the fact that Saturn's not in its best position today. People are resisting structure, responsibility, control. You'll see people edgy, and solar eclipse is usually up. If it hits you and you hit anything in late Gemini or early Cancer, then you're feeling it. You know, you're quote being hit by the eclipse is kind of the language that you have. So you're like, wow, where is zero Cancer hitting in my chart? And you look at it and you say, where am I receiving this energy? But remember, because we're on the galactic center, we do want to send it straight back out into the galaxy, which will help to stabilize our planet. Because, thoughts are things, and prayer does count. So I encourage everybody to do your part tonight, to say some prayers. And I wanted to go back. Now, eclipses in their metonic phase, or from Earth physical standpoint, repeat every 19 years. For a period of 5 or 6 years, and then they shift to another degree. But if we go back to June 21st, 2001, the eclipse was at zero Cancer. It was at 10 minutes, not 21 minutes, so the minutes are off, but it's still on zero. And so you're like, wow. So it was a solar eclipse at zero Cancer. And of course, the year of 2001, you think, wow, was there anything significant that jumped up in that? Well, of course, almost all of you can pop up with 9/11 pretty quick. But 9/11 was a world crisis that did change the consciousness of people. Okay, it did change the consciousness of people. And there it was. Well, guess what? This eclipse on June 21, it's certainly the last 3 months and up 3 months, is certainly what's going on is changing world consciousness. And I don't know that we'll ever shop quite the same, or businesses will be run differently. So there's a lot of things that there's nuances, there's things that will be permanently impacted by this energy shift. So, and I'm going to go farther with that in just a minute. But I wanted to go back 19 more years before 2001 and show you the eclipse of 1982. So, for those of us that are older, and we're around in 1982, which was what, 38 years ago, I guess. That one was at 29 Gemini, 47 minutes. There's 60 minutes in a degree. We're at 29:47. The next one was at 20:10, and the next one was at 20:20. What was it? 0:21. This one was. But nonetheless, they're all within a degree. So this eclipse in 1982. So reflect back, not just to June. This was a partial eclipse. It was farther away from the node. But nonetheless, what changes, if you think about 1982, were coming about at that time? We had a lot of economic shifts during that time. But you can reflect on that and say, this is a repeating eclipse pattern. We will have a couple more on these degrees before they move off. So if it's 2020, it'll be 2038. 2039 will be the next one on these degrees. So just a little reflection for yourself, what was happening, because it's not going to be the same, but it may be very much in the same family because the eclipse is happening in relationship to your natal planets and into your houses, and so you may feel it and respond to it very much the same way. So, rum-da-dum-dum, this has a quincunx to Saturn. Now, I want to go to the next. Eclipses happen every 6 months. We have a new moon and a full moon every single month, but when they line up close to the nodal axis of the moon, it becomes an eclipse because that's when we get the shadow, which is what eclipse means. So, in December, the solar eclipse will be at 23 degrees Sag. Now, it's 4 degrees off the nodes. From 19 to 23 is 4 degrees. And so, it is, where's my PowerPoint? There it is. So here, in Washington, D.C., this is the winter. All right, sorry. Okay, this is not the eclipse. Sorry, we're talking about. This is the winter solstice. So see, because it's summer solstice, winter solstice. So to balance this, yes, the eclipse is close, but it's the solstice I wanted to look at because the day of the solstice, which is December 21st. I mean, every year we have our winter solstice on December 21st. 20th or 21st, it could, whatever, but it's 5:02 a.m. this year in the morning. So, but something very big is happening on the solar eclipse. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be conjunct. Now, Jupiter and Saturn come together every 20 years. It's called the Great Conjunction, but it's at 0 Aquarius. So, and the moon and Neptune will be together in Pisces on this. And so there are many people writing that they really feel, for many reasons, that between now and the winter solstice, we are breaking from the Piscean age toward the Aquarian age, and that this is the dark night of the planet, and this is what's happening here, that we are struggling. But Pisces is a water sign. It's emotional, it's sensing. And so over this last 2,100 years, we've been called to develop our intuition, our senses, our spiritual values, because Pisces is very spiritual. And so we've been called to do that. Now, we're not going to throw that out. But now, people feel that because the Jupiter-Saturn Great Conjunction is happening at 0 Aquarius, which it has not done for, I forget the date, a long. Actually, I have a paper in the other room. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Because it's in one element for about 240 years or something, and we've got 4 elements. So coming back to it, 800-900 years is the idea. So for Jupiter, and for it to hit 0 degrees, which is the critical degree, says we are coming into this new age of consciousness. Now, there's nobody on this webinar that is not awake somewhat and has not, at somewhere in your prayers and in your heart, been asked to be used, to serve the planet, to be a part, of helping. So here we are. This, between now and December, there's going to be Neptune, a lot of confusion, a lot of dissolving, a lot of letting go. So give thought to that. You'll see that the sun that day is at 0 Capricorn, coming into the new sign. That's the mark of the winter solstice. There's Jupiter, Saturn. Now, you'll notice that with the nodes, of course, the nodes are the, kind of a key to our spiritual access. They're at 19, whoa, whoopee. Let me undo that. I screwed that up. Me flipping around. Keep my hands off there. My hands off the mouse. The nodes are squaring. You see that? See the mark too? That's considered to be 90 degrees each way to that nodal axis. And so Moon Neptune are squaring the nodes. We're at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads of Pisces, with our spirituality, with our direction. And so here we are. And so if you want to know astrologically or physically what's happening, I mean, you know emotionally, I'm sure you can feel it. There's confusion, there's letting go. The old ways are floating away, right? Because Neptune is a great dissolver. And so we do not want to throw out our spiritual nuggets from Pisces, but perhaps our illusion, our confusion, and Neptune is fear and Pisces. So I'm telling you, between now and then, if you have any of the hidden fears and hesitations, you're going to see them. They're going to come up in your face. And so I'm sure I can ask you, is anybody experiencing that flashback of fear, whether it's yours or whether it's other people in your family? Because this is what we're coming up to at the winter solstice. Yes, that's Susan. I got it. But it's starting, and it's been coming up. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. We're just going to come out of this a little later. The key word that comes when you see Saturn involved is simplify. Get down to basics. Hunker down. Do the basics. We'll make it. It's scary to watch everybody flailing, but imagine the sea and the water and the waves and everything is in turmoil, and you're like, holy smoke. But we are watching the universal energy at work, clearing the space. I should post that, Marianne. Somewhere in here I have the Great Invocation on this computer. The Great Invocation is a world prayer. Is anybody else familiar with the Great Invocation? I do use it no. Let's see if I can pull it up. Carolyn is, because she was in class with graduation. We used it. Let me see if I can bring it up for you. And Chris Kelly is. Let's see if I can bring up Word and put in. Yes. Mariana says yes, she is. The Great Invocation, the Lucas Trust, is a trust of a lot of world servers. Great Invocation, let's see. Great Invocation. Man, I have it. I know I do, but maybe not. Maybe not on this computer. Maybe on the other one. So I may not be able to bring it up here. Hang on. Susan, but yes, you can Google it. Google the Great Invocation. I'll type it here. That's what it's called. Karen Donovan's on here. Yes, you can. She says the Great Invocation. It will be under probably the Lucas Trust. A lot of work of the Ascended Masters, the higher beings, Lucas Trust has kept printed, and so you can, the Great Invocation, and it's under the Lucas Trust. So, right, from the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, and it on from there. It's not a big prayer, it's not long. I will tell you that there are people in small groups around the world every day, every hour, committed somewhere to reading that prayer. So you choose to pray, you'll be praying with, repeating it with a big group of people. So How'd they get off on that? The moon Neptune, I guess the great dissolver. And so praying, Marianne, praying for the planet. And so we're praying for our higher good. We're going to make it, but we'd like to help stabilize. We would like to be part of the solution, not the problem. And that's difficult. And so each one of us, everybody says, well, what can I do? Well, we can. We can pray. We can hold the space. We can try not to overreact when people come at us. We can. And so I'm suggesting, as we look at this, so, here's the current chart. So between now, which is the summer solstice because it's 0 Cancer, and the winter solstice, 0 Capricorn, we're being called. But when you look at that square to Moon Neptune right here, so here are the nodes squaring Moon Neptune, it says we have to give up some of that Neptune idealism and non-reality and fear that we have fed from. And so it's like, so each one of us has to do our part. And so how well we make it, how easily we make it, will depend upon how well we hold the space. So, I could go on and on, but this Jupiter-Saturn, I screwed that up again. There. I keep moving that circle with my hands. That Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is a 20-year thing. We've talked about it. It has marked it makes worldly change. It'll make political choices. It'll make financial choices for the planet. That's what it will do. So Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is occurring on December 21. And you'll see it, and people will be writing about it all over the place. But the whole point here is, what can we do? What can each one of us do as an individual to hold this space? And not buy into the fear, So I feel like I'm a broken record. I keep preaching the same stuff. Oh, there you go. Today is the Ring of Fire. And we know that. So now we can go back over here and minimize this sucker and go back to current time and talk for a minute about where are the planets. And Mars has been, now remember when we did this last and everybody was rioting, and I said when Mars finished with Neptune, it was almost scary because, not that it hasn't, but they stopped they stopped fighting, burning, doing Mars stuff, and they started, they're still protesting, and Neptune, they're trying to make themselves heard, but they aren't destroying everything in front of them. So the Mars has calmed down. Now, I have to tell you that on today's, the 21st, like the 30th, Mars will go into Aries. Now, Mars rules Aries, and so from now until next January, Mars will be in its own sign, which is very unusual because Mars is usually only there 2 months. That's a 2-year orbit. There are 12 signs. 2 into 24 months is, every 2 months goes to a sign, except it's retrograding there. Starting July 1 all the way through January, Mars is going to be retrograding back and forth in Aries. So that is a more aggressive, impulsive, fiery energy. Make sure you're part of the solution, not the problem. So that's what I tell me, and that's what I'm going to tell you. Make sure that you do your prayers, you try to stay centered, and that we don't feed the fire. We don't want to feed the flame. So Mars will be in Aries. The other thing that for the next 2.5 months is going to make this summer feel unstable for you. And you can get online and figure out what sign the moon's in on any given day, because all you have to do is go to any of the all those time passages. There's Astro Matrix, there's Astro Seek, there's a whole bunch of them. It'll just tell you that you can tune into, and they'll say what sign the moon's in today. The moon take those 27.5 days to go around, There are 12 signs, about 2.5 days to a sign. The moon moves, it's at almost 13 degrees, which is absolutely smack dab in the middle between 11 and 15 degrees. The moon is smack dab on average at the moment. But it takes 2.5 days to go through the sign, then goes through the next sign. Because the planet Mercury is the planet of communication and speaking and our thinking. Because Mercury, which normally it rules Gemini and Virgo, but it's in the sign of Cancer now. Cancer is an emotional sign. So Mercury in the sky is answering to the moon. So wherever the moon is during that time is how Mercury is going to respond, because Mercury is answering to the moon while it's in the moon sign. That's called where's the ruler of the sign. What that means to you and why do you care is that about every 2.5 days we're going to see a shift in people's thinking and behavior and their position, and you're like, what on earth? Now, once Mercury gets out of Cancer, and because Mercury's is retrograde now, and so it's going to go back to early Cancer and then come back. So it's going to be there 2.5 months, which it, again, normally is not. It's usually there a month. But Mercury is in Cancer. We have 5 planets at the moment. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. We have Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury, all retrograde. We don't count the nodes. So 5 planets out of 10 are retrograde now, or slowed down, or asking us to go internally and reflect. That's what the universe is asking us to do. And then Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Cancer, which is an emotional, reactive energy. So as you watch this moon, now this morning, the moon was at 0 degrees of Cancer, and when I go to the current as we speak moment, whereas the moon moved to tonight, it's already at 10 Cancer. The sun has moved its 1 degree. The sun's at 10 Cancer. It'll be there another, day and a half? And then it'll go into Leo. But so every 2.5 days. So if you're watching people, be aware that for the next 2 months, you're going to see a lot of emotional or communication shifting. And you're like, does anybody ever stand still? So just be conscious, and be conscious too that you might be responding to the moon's position. Does that make any sense? I know that that's a little more intense than I usually talk about, but just so that you are aware that this Mercury is answering to the moon, and the moon flies around here. So, good. Okay, so you can, like I said, if you know any of the signs, and most of you have a cheat sheet, a mind cheat sheet anyway, or you can get online and say, because for the next 2 days, the moon's in Cancer. Now, and then it'll be in Leo. Now, Leo is much more confident and pompous and strong, and so everybody's going to come out really strong and confident, and this is what I'm going to do. Then we'll move into Virgo, and everybody's going to want to get to work and get to detail and clean things up, and so it's going to, because that's Mercury's how we think, and but when Mercury goes to, when the moon, well, see, Mercury's going to stay in Cancer, so for the next month, every time the moon moves, Mercury's going to react. When we get into August and Mercury moves into Leo, different story. People will be more confident, they'll be more definite. Leo is a fixed sign, and it'll be stronger. So, pay heed. The big deal is that the moon, Mercury is answering to this moon, and of course the moon always does dance around. And that's why the moon is, Cancer people are said to be changeable and moody. It's because their ruler is changing its sign all the time. And so Cancer people have more issues with change and moodiness and reacting. Okay. All right. Well, who has any questions, comments that you want to talk about here before we, I've thrown a lot of information out here in a pretty short period of time. Anybody have any questions about that or anything you'd like for me to explain? Speak up, kids. This is your chance. Elaine is typing. We'll see. Okay. Big takeaway. Lots of emotional changes coming. Yes. Lots of emotional reactions. A lot of emotional reactions coming is how I'd like to. So we have choices. If you're aware that people are going to be reactive and moody, you can check yourself and say, am I standing back from this a little bit? So you're going to see the next 2 months anyway, we're going to see a lot of emotional reactions and ups and downs. And 1 minute they're in, 1 minute they're out, and you're like, really? Cindy said, what do you mean by being part of the solution and not the problem? But that's a good question, Cindy. We can jump in and do all this Neptune and Mercury and Cancer emotional reactive stuff, or we can step back one step and say, wow, I know this is going on and I know people are more emotional than normal, and I'm going to observe and try to stand back just a little bit and not instant reaction. That's a choice. That's a choice in consciousness. Does that make sense? So this is the time to focus on your wants. Look at the big picture on both sides. That's right, your side and the other person's. But it's like, do not be what I call knee-jerk reactions, is what I call it. Well, Susan, you can cancel, you can focus on your wants, but they'll change. I think I'd get them down to a minimum. Well, health for the planet, yes. I want you to step back and focus on the bigger picture for all of us. Bigger picture, just try not to be part of that instant response, instant emotional reaction thing. It's hard, and sometimes you just have to shut your mouth and walk away and let the wind die down and then see what's really happening. This is a high, with an eclipse on 0 Cancer, and Cancer is the sign of our emotional sensitivities and reactions. You know that everything's high. It's like peaked because the eclipse expands everything. Is prayer the best way to respond to the emotional reactivity? How do you simultaneously hold your space? Sometimes you have to, instead of commenting or just spelling something out through your mouth, step back, count to 5. Do I need to say this? Should I walk away? How do I hold my space? I step back and think, I'm in this space. Do I need to say this? Will there be any good that comes from it? So you have to ask yourself that before you respond. And there'll be a lot less stuff. Cardinal leadership nurturing. Well, certainly leadership nurturing, but Cancer is emotional, and this eclipse is in Cancer. So we don't want to be that instant Cancer reaction. As you begin to observe over the next 2 months while Mercury is still in Cancer, you're going to see people all over the place. I am certainly said, Susan, that I'm saying that come January things are going to settle down. Yes, they are. When we get to the end of December, and I think there's going to be some new structure. Will the eclipse affect the election? It's in between 2 eclipses, and of course it will. But there's other things that are happening, like Mars being retrograde in its own sign, Aries, which is fiery and a fighting spirit, smack dab in the middle of this. I have the election chart. We will do a Sunday night in the fall, and I will show you the election chart. Karen Donna says Cancer energy is compassion, so trying to hold that space for self and others. Exactly, Karen. Thank you for the word. Because the first instinct is emotion and reaction and hurt, and instead it says step back one space, count to 3, and get to the compassion and the sensitivity for somebody else and say, wow, they're really in stress. So give yourself that second, that to to react as the stronger, the healthier response. But it takes some discipline to do that. And I'm telling you, while Mercury's in Cancer, everybody's just going to want to have an emotional reaction and say what they think. That's the first instinct. We don't always have to have our first instinct, though. So have compassion, have sensitivity. If you see somebody just flaring out, you're like, wow, they're reacting. They don't know what's happening to them. She said, well, that's happened. Susan says it's happening with Renee, her daughter. Well, this energy is very strong. You're seeing it on a political front. We're seeing it on our government front. We're seeing it on the world front. I have you noted, I just FYI, the battles and the wars between India and China are right on. Remember the map? I'll show you that before we quit, but not there, sorry. Let me do this. Let me show you the eclipse map for just a minute. And guess what? What we're looking at and what's happening between India and China right now. I don't want that. Oh, sorry. That's another story for another day. It's another way of. There it is. Here's the eclipse path of today, and it started last night. You have Africa, you have across India, all the way to China. And right here, those little two black dots, I don't know if you can see them because they're so small, one here and one here, is where the eclipse is culminating, where it was the longest, where it was 1.5 minutes long in its longevity. And what I showed you on the PowerPoint, this is right here is where all this fighting's going on. But you see, this energy has stirred up. Some people don't understand that we are energy and we respond to energy. And this eclipse is a powerful force. So be conscious, be aware, try not to feed into it, is all I can tell you. So there we go. I'm looking to see who all's on here. Lots of people are on here. So that's where we are. But there it is, and when you see this eclipse, and so today you see they're still all in Cancer, and there's Mercury still in Cancer. The aspect to Saturn is lightening up a little bit, so it's not, by tomorrow it's not even going to feel as hard or heavy. Yesterday was pretty intense, but so hold the space, go for the high end of Cancer. Eclipses are 6 months in, 6 months out. That's the historical classical summary. And so wherever they were visible, that's where they expected the biggest changes in the world. Because if the light went out, they died. So you've heard that story about eclipses before and why they are considered to be so ominous, so scary. However, there's an awful lot of energy release with an eclipse. So we've been talking about this. We're here. We're seeing all the crisis. I'm delighted to say that Mars has pulled away from Neptune, and Mars in Pisces is not as aggressive. However, in July, when Mars hits Aries, we're going to see some more aggression. And that's when our reactions and our prayers can make a difference. And I believe that energy follows intent. So the more we pray and the more we work, the better we will be. And we can make a difference if it is just being calm, being compassionate, and holding space. So that's the call of the day. That's what I want you guys to do. Any of your visualizations are great. You want to Google the Lucas Trust and print a copy of the Great Invocation. I do have it on the other computer. I just don't have it here. I suggest you read it once a day if you want to contribute and there's something you want to do. Does anybody else have any questions? You're welcome. You're welcome. So happy Father's Day, happy solstice, happy solar eclipse. Stay cool, guys. Well, I think Wednesday or Thursday, I think. So we shall see. Okay, I'm going to say good night. Thank you for attending. I will offline this. We will put it on YouTube, so if anybody wants to watch it, they can. Or you can tell other people if they want to watch it. That's fine, because sometimes you may say, well, she talked about it, particularly that Mercury in Cancer. The next 2 months, while everything's jumping around, stay cool. Okay? All right, guys. Safe journeys. Yep, I hope so. Bye. Be good. Love you guys. Bye.